This will be our sixth and final week with our Lent series. And we're going to have next week off, so no class on the 7th. We will be back on April 14th, as usual, at 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. Those will continue to be hybrid sessions. So if you would like to be here in person, you're welcome to be here in person. If you would like to join us electronically, you're welcome to join us electronically. And we're going to pick up with the book of Leviticus, which I think will be a learning experience for us all, myself included. And I also want to let you know I will be sending out by email a short form for your input on this series to see if this is something that we might want to do again. If we did, how could we do it better? What things would we want to make sure to do again? So watch your email for a short evaluation form from me, and I would ask you to take a couple minutes with that. I hope to get that out maybe tomorrow. So I just want people to be on the lookout for that. If you are watching this as a recording and you're not usually getting the emails about the classes, please let me know. I'd be happy to send that to you and get your input as folks who might be watching it later. With that, let us go ahead and let me pull up our video for tonight. All right. Now I have to pause it. I can't let it keep going before we're ready for it. And nope, get bigger. All right, here we go. See, I'm finally getting the hang of it. Share sound.
It's okay. Andrea's here tonight, so it doesn't matter if it doesn't work.
Right.
She's got it. I can hook us up just in case.
Good. I'm very happy to be here today with Pastor Christine Meyer, who is retired, who was actually my internship supervisor back when I was in seminary. So I'm very happy to be spending some time with Pastor Chris here today as we are moving through our Lenten journey. And Chris, would you be willing to open us with a word of prayer?
I would be very happy to do that. I'm going to open us before that with the way I open my devotions every day. I use that every day to kind of center myself before I go into my devotional time. And sometimes I listen to it for 5 or 6 repetitions, sometimes 7 or 8. Sometimes we wrap it up really quickly, but let us pray. We who know from experience that life can change on a dime, we who feel compelled to push and pull and tug at our lives to make them fit the expectations of others and ourselves. We who are anxious to make a dime and to use the time, come to you, O Lord. Help us to wait. Help us to listen. Speak to us so that we may discern your voice above all others and be bold to follow you into a hurting world, carrying your message of life and hope and truth. Amen.
Amen. And Chris, for those who may want to look into it a little further, can you share with us what the music was that you were using as we got started in prayer?
Sure, that is the Taizé community is in France, and it's a retreat community for young people. In fact, you may go visit it at any age, but you're only allowed to stay there if you're younger than 30. So needless to say, I never got to that place, but it's a beautiful community, and they have put forth all kinds of chants and for services and for devotions, and yeah, that's available on YouTube. You go to Taizé community, wait for the Lord, and that chant will come up, but there's lots of others.
Excellent, thank you. So can you tell us a little bit about your current ministry, now being a retired pastor?
Well, it's a little hard to talk about ministry in retirement, but yeah, I guess I can. If I were to summarize it, I'd like to think it's well done, good and faithful servant, and then see this as kind of my reward for lots and lots and lots of years. I was 42 years in the ministry in 3 congregations and 7 years as a chaplain at a nursing home. And yeah, so I've been retired 4 years, and it's been absolutely wonderful. I have done 2 interims and filling in between pastors. And right now, our own little church that we go to, Lord of Love Lutheran in Galena, Illinois, is between pastors. They had 3 pastoral changes within the course of a year and a half. So Doug, my husband, and I, who worked together for 25 years in a congregation, offered to, we'll fill in doing supply preaching. It's a tiny congregation. They don't have a lot of requirements, but and the congregation is very, very active in pulling things together. And so we said we'd fill in, and we do that now every week.
So always something to keep you busy, always something to keep you engaged with that. And I look forward to the opportunity to retire someday. When that day will be,
You'll get there.
I don't know. But more immediately, I do know that we are in the middle of Lent. And as we began Lent, we see Jesus in the wilderness, and we see him out there in that place. It's a place of testing. It's a place also of renewal, and a place of preparation for what God is about to do next. Can you share with us where and how you're feeling tested in these days, both professionally and in your own walk with God?
Well, I mean, have we as a culture, as a world, as a global community, ever been tested like this before? I really don't think so. This is like the ultimate wilderness out here, and within that context, within that wilderness for everybody, we're each navigating our own little wildernesses, and trying to find the direction, and trying to figure out where it is we go in this bigger wilderness.
How have you seen that kind of play out for you recently, kind of that testing in that wilderness?
Yes. Well, we were rather well suited for a quarantine, because Galena is in the driftless area of Wisconsin, Iowa, and Illinois. and it's full of hills. And one of the reasons it was called the driftless area is because everybody's kind of isolated because of all the hills and the ravines and the rivers and everything else that keeps you separated. And even with the technology that we have today, we still maintain that separation because of the cell phone connectivity that we don't have, and although we're getting fiber optic, so we will be doing better next year. But it's a community that's, we're out in the wilderness here, and that sort of set the stage. We thought we were doing great being here. There's a lot to do outdoors, and it's a beautiful landscape. It's a calming place to be. So we're doing great along here, thinking that, okay, we can survive this for what? A couple of months. And then it goes on and on. Probably the biggest challenge, of course, as it is for everybody, is that we're separated. I have 3 children, and they're 2 in Chicago and 1 in Washington, D.C. And so we don't get the opportunity to be together all that much, even in the good times. But now it's been even worse than that. And my father, who was 95 years old, was in assisted living, and oh my gosh, they even had the absolute worst of the worst for being isolated from community and family and friends. And we all knew it's a necessity. It's the way it has to be. But it was devastating for him. It truly was. And I think a lot of that is the cause why at 95, there's a lot of causes, but is one of the prime reasons that he became more ill. He didn't get COVID, but about 2 weeks ago, he went into the hospital, and last Friday morning he died. And I think, that kind of brought home to me what all these other families are going through when you just are helpless and feeling helpless. And that kind of is wilderness in my, just that absolute vulnerability. When you realize your ultimate vulnerability and that you can't do anything about it. So that's been part of the bigger wilderness for me, plus the fact that I have been waiting for a year for hip surgery. And my hip surgery was scheduled for the day after he went into the hospital. So I am right now just recovering from that, which has its own ups and downs. So in a lot of ways, everything going fine, holding up, and then crash.
Yeah, that true wilderness experience seemed to all descend at once. And that notion of isolation and not even being able to be together with the people you would usually be together with to support each other when this happens just compounds the difficulty of the situation. Living, you chose to retire to a wilderness area geographically. And so certainly I would think you might have some thoughts on the wilderness, not only as a place of testing, but as a place of rest and renewal. And certainly being in a moment where you really need that rest and renewal. Where and how are you finding that rest and renewal, even in the midst of so much wilderness?
Yeah, I've never liked talking about the wilderness primarily as a place of testing. I've never liked that interpretation of it because That obviously comes from Jesus' temptation in the wilderness, but the Exodus, the temptation, people leaving Egypt and being out in the wilderness, that really was a time of learning, and not head learning, but certainly to learn where your dependency lies. Who am I dependent on, and how do I require God's presence in my life in some way? And I like to think of the wilderness as a place of listening. Some of the old Native American things with the sweat lodges, but you go away to a place that's uncomplicated, and uncomplicated by the voices that are all around you, by all the things that are going on around you, and that's an opportunity. I mean, we all find that when we go on vacation. We find that when we quiet the voices of family obligation and work voices and all of the different things, and then to be able to concentrate, or to not even to concentrate, but just to listen to some other voice. How many people come back from vacation and in their renewal they say, I really have to change jobs, or we really should invest in this piece of our life and let this piece kind of become less important to us. Prioritize. We need to prioritize things differently. So I think that is a lot of what the wilderness is. A place of quiet, where you don't have a lot of, you're not being picked at by by expectations that people have for you, whether they be family expectations or expectations of employment, or all those things. And you quiet those voices and allow God's voice to come through. Allow God's presence to be real to you, so that you can hear that voice. And I believe with all of my heart, I mean, I don't hear voices. I'm not crazy. But I believe with all my heart that God does direct and guide us when we ask for it. Whenever my kids have been up for job changes, and we're not, we downplay this super spiritual in our family because it scares people away. But whenever they've been up for job changes and they talk about, oh, well, I've looked at the salary and I've looked at this, the opportunities for advancement, and I've looked at how much my lifestyle would be changed by this. And I always say to them, have you prayed about it? Have you shuttered down all those things and let God speak to you about what this means for your life?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that idea of wilderness as a place of quiet, and perhaps discomfort in the wilderness may say something about our need to fill the time and space around us with noise all the time. How comfortable are we with quiet? Which is ironic, because I'm feeling like I need to say something instead of letting the quiet go on here as we're talking. But yeah, wilderness as a place more of quiet and seeking rather than a place of testing, I think is definitely leads to renewal. And as you had mentioned, seeking out a time of quiet or a place of quiet as you try to make important decisions. Certainly, if we look to Scripture, wilderness is almost never a final destination, but it is something that God leads us through on our way to wherever it is that God leads us next. What is your process for discerning where God needs you next? What is your process for finding that path God is nudging you down?
It's really, really simple. It's really, really simple. I at various points in my life, I get to a point and I find myself sitting in a chapel or in the car one day, parked, thinking, and my prayer is always the same. I come and then I try to find how it is I'm coming. What am I confused about? What is it that's making my life so difficult right now? What is it that's complicating things? And I come and I say, this is how I'm feeling. I'm stressed about this. I feel like I need a change, but I don't know what it is. And I need you to tell me. And Lord, I'm going to sit here and listen for a while. And maybe we'll do this for a few days or a few weeks or a few months. But I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to wait for you to tell me. And I swear, as my personal witness, I have always come out of that experience, not over, years and years, but I've come out of that experience just absolutely knowing and being calm about the decision that I end up making and being at peace with it. Because I really do believe that God is opening opportunities to us, and we have to be able to, obviously, we invite our rationality and all of that to the table, but we look at, what do you want me to do? Is the pay cut most important, or is the move that I'll have to make most important, or is what is it? And the other side of that always is that all of a sudden, things seem to fall away as being problems or roadblocks. Things that started out as roadblocks end up just, oh, well, we'll take care of that. We'll be able to sell the house, or we'll end up renting it, or whatever. But we'll do that. That's, there's always a way to do that. And more often than not, something spectacularly surprising happens and makes it even that much easier to follow that path.
How do you see yourself moving forward on the path that God is leading you down now? Do you have a sense of maybe next steps that God is inviting you to take? Or what is your sense of how you move forward down that path as God reveals it?
That being said, about being at those wilderness moments, there's a lot of time in between there when you're not really in the wilderness. And right now, I kind of feel like I'm at a stopping place. I'm at a very quiet. I don't need to be pushing ahead somewhere. I'm waiting for what around me changes so that I can adapt to those changes before I feel like I'm called to another ministry, another task, another purpose. I guess during this time, this year, I've been made more and more aware of how many agencies and needs there are in our community that I could certainly help with, or certainly be a volunteer to. And I look forward to being able to do that. One, as a healthy person, and second, as a person who, with my father being gone, a good piece of responsibility has been taken off my shoulders for his care. And so I really look forward to what's coming up, because I'm just waiting for it. I'm just sitting back here waiting for it. I'm waiting for, that chance conversation with somebody at a coffee hour where they say, we're working on this project, and we're pulling together people to do that. And our little church, oh, amazingly, it's been such a wonderful thing in the midst of disaster. We were in a little tiny rented space, and it was way too small. There was no way to grow a church that way. It wasn't even, our membership is only like 50, and it wasn't even big enough for us. But it was, everything around here was pretty expensive for the kind of thing we were looking for. And at the beginning in January, we pulled together a building committee to look at what if we built a building. Maybe we could get the land donated, and maybe then we'd be able to build a building. And we met with an architect, and we put forth some money about that. And it just became clear that it was more than we would be able to finance. We just would never get a loan for it. So okay, now we have the pandemic, and everybody's worshiping hither and yon, and we're not even using the building we got. And all of a sudden, this building, 2 weeks ago, this building turns up. Somebody is moving, and the food pantry is moving into the bottom level of this, but then there's this whole section of it. It's 3 times the size of the building we've been at. Wonderful people, wonderful renters to work with. And it's just like, how did this happen? It just like landed in our laps, and it's the same price as what we were paying for rent before. And it just landed in our laps. It just, there was talk of closing our congregation because we were without a pastor again, and all these different things. And now we've got a whole new life. We have all kinds of possibilities for that. Just waiting for how to be able to do more ministry and with more space. It's just exciting. It's just exciting.
Yeah, and just amazing to think about that idea of new life and new possibilities, kind of springing at a time when maybe we're less likely to look for new life and new possibilities. I attribute that to God's habit of working through death and resurrection, rather than just saying, I'm going to take something and build it up the way people would build it up. So what a wonderful blessing. And again, a time for excitement when hopefully you're able to be back in that space together and be in that space that's a better fit. God is still at work. And as we're coming to the conclusion of our time together this afternoon, is there anything else that you sense God wants God's people here at Holy Shepherd Lutheran Church to hear today?
Well, you gave me that question, and I thought a lot about it because I don't know much about your church. So, I know it through you, but I guess in general, my message for the church in general is it's hard times for the church right now. In all my 44 years of ministry now, I think this is the hardest time I've ever known. Because it's just so unknown. We just don't know how to do church anymore like we used to do church. And I think we just have to live with that a little bit, that we don't know. And that, we just have to, when we're gonna come out of this pandemic thing, we're gonna come out of it, and the church, the distances that we've had and the ways we've had to do worship and all of those things, and we're gonna come out of it, and we're gonna have all kinds of new ideas and all kinds of new possibilities and opportunities that we haven't had before. And I also really think that one of the things that's going to be true about this pandemic is that it has caused people to think more deeply about their relationship to each other, and certainly their relationship to a transcendent. And I think we're gonna have an absolute renewal. And I don't know what form that's going to take, but I really believe we're going to have a church renewal. If we just don't try and push it so much, the way, but to wait for the voice of the Lord to speak to us, to be patient and just hang in there. And I really believe that. I really do. I think there's good stuff on the horizon.
What a blessing to hear those words of encouragement, and to remember that we wait for God. God doesn't operate on our timetable, no matter how much we might want that.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your thoughtfulness and for being a part of our Lenten journey here. And certainly hope that Lent is filled with blessing for you. And just appreciate your willingness to be here with us.
Well, thank you, Eric. It's been fun.
Amen. Well, blessings on your afternoon, and we will see you soon.
And we made it through technologically.
We did. Thanks be to God.
Thanks be to God. Thanks be to God.
Amen.
Very good. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Okay. First impressions, initial thoughts, things that really jumped out at you or surprised you, things that were memorable.
Well, I like how she said she thinks there's going to be a renewal with the church, because I think that she's onto something there, because I think everybody is wanting so much to get things back to a more normal way that it might really spark a renewal, hopefully.
I think through the pandemic, going through the pandemic, we realize how important God is in our life, and that when we don't, those months when we didn't have the opportunity to worship together, I think it just kind of stirred the fire up even more in people. And I think, yeah, I really do believe what she said. I also enjoy what she says. It's about listening and being quiet. And sometimes I think we get so interested in just moving forward. This has to be done, that has to be done, that we really don't stop to hear that voice as to, which way God is trying to direct us, which way he feels is important for us because we're so just locked into the tunnel vision of life. And my dad always used to tell me, and I was a kid and be talking, he says, just remember, when you're talking, you can't, it's harder to listen to what's going on. And so yeah, as I get older too, I tend to be more quiet and tend to listen more.
It's interesting that the same letters that spell out listen are also involved in silent.
Good job, Rhonda.
Hey,
You get that from Facebook?
actually a friend of mine, but yeah. So she sent that and I was like, ooh, wow, yeah.
That'll go on your Facebook page tonight, right?
Yeah, let me write that down.
I liked how she started out with that music, the Tizay. It
Mhm.
just, as soon as I heard it, I was just kind of immediately relaxed some. It was like, well, what a nice place to just kind of step back and get into a very relaxed place and state of mind to be able to sort of move forward with prayer and devotion and things like that. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, the Taizé chants and the Taizé prayers are written to be very simple and easy to learn, and you sing them over and over and over again, and it's kind of gets you into a meditative state of mind.
I missed the connection, Pastor. How are you connected to her?
Chris was, when I did my year-long internship, when I did my time of being an apprentice pastor, she was my supervisor. As I
Oh,
told
okay.
people here in person, you can either thank or curse her for helping to shape me.
She's still out.
All kind of thankfulness going on, Pastor, all kind of thankfulness.
I think we should do some kind of retreats here. It'd be kind of fun.
So, I want to get a little crazy here as we're coming towards the end of our Lenten journey. I want to start in the middle of our handout here. I think that something I have seen and heard and discussed with people, that one of the things that has made responding to the pandemic extra difficult all around is our desire to be in control, and among a lot of people, a feeling like we actually are in control most of the time, and then all of a sudden this thing happens and there is so much that is beyond our control, and people sometimes respond to that in less than healthy and constructive ways, I'll say. And Chris talked about that in terms of wilderness as a place of absolute vulnerability, when you realize your ultimate vulnerability and you can't do anything about it. Has anyone felt like that's kind of confronted them over the last year? Just that idea of, yeah, there's some ways in which I am not as in control of things as I had thought I was.
Well, I would say, I think everyone has had some of that. I mean, for crying out loud, you even have to like plan your grocery trips back when it was at its worst. Like, you don't want to go too often, so it's going to be Tuesday this week, and then you got to make that last till Friday of the following week, and then maybe Tuesday of the week after that. So I mean, you just lost that whole sense of being able to do whatever you want when you want it. That was just gone.
And I think the I don't want to say not knowing, but yeah, the not knowing when, the thinking back to March 13th and okay, when the biggest part of my career is scheduling groups, almost like a travel agent. And having people say, and having to say on March 12th, okay, no, you're not going to Guatemala tomorrow.
Mhm.
But yeah, the group, but still having a ticket for the end of April, thinking that, yeah, it's gonna be done in April. And then, well, no, I'm gonna cash in that ticket and change it to August. Oh, wait, no, now it's so that not even so much control, but the lack of knowing what's coming.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes it hard to plan around anything.
Well, even to kind of this whole pandemic thing, to take it even back a little bit further, it's like when you go to a store, touching a doorknob or making sure you don't touch your face after you touch that doorknob and different things like that, because we were so, out in left field as to what this was all about. And, all you hear are numbers of people getting ill and in the hospital on the respirator. And, you're there, well, I'm carrying around the hand sanitizer, wearing the mask, and go to get gas, and I was afraid to get gas because I forgot my gloves. And I mean, you talk about vulnerability and being out there, it's like, yeah, it was really strange, very difficult.
So how do we deal with that when we are really confronted with that sense of vulnerability? How do we respond to it? And maybe I'll even ask more specifically, how do we respond to it faithfully? And I am willing to take for an answer, ideally, I would do this.
Mhm.
That's okay too, but how do we deal with that?
Is that where the let go, that God comes in?
You tell me.
Well, it should probably.
I think throughout our life, we usually have this illusory belief that we're in control, and soon we have an awakening numerous times that we're not. I think one of the positive things, because oftentimes those times when we realize we're not in control, things are not going the proper way. But I think the way I like to look at it is I always remember that ultimately God is in control. And ultimately, this time here on earth is not our full essence of our being.
So being renewed in that truth that, maybe being honest with ourselves. No, we're not in control, and that's okay because we know who is.
Especially if we think the ultimate control. Obviously, there are going to be attempts to have control, and maybe temporary and temporal control by certain individuals, some of whom and some entities and institutions that have temporal control do work that is ultimately contrary to God's will. But in the long run, God is the ultimate one in control. And that's what we always have to remind ourselves and take comfort on, because I think that we are constantly through our life reminded that we truly aren't in control.
And I would agree with that, and I would then take it a step further and maybe even tie it back, Pastor, to what you said when you led into this question, is that it's difficult for us to admit that we're not in control, and perhaps some of that nastiness that you were talking about when you led into the question, and I know exactly what you were talking about from my time on the council. I think that could have been a reaction. Those kind of reactions could have been like a revolt from people who couldn't accept that, and they wanted to exert control. Just a thought.
I wholeheartedly agree with that surmising.
And we could all, no matter what we go through, we could still be kind to each other. We could still treat others with respect. And because face it, this is God's people, we're all God's people. And the best way to get through it is by just banding together and working together as a group. And sometimes you may feel that you're in quarantine, you're alone, but I mean, even if you see somebody, you could, say hi, how you doing, or just even, from a socially distance, in a social distance fashion. I mean, you can still be kind to people. You could still try to help them as much as you can and do things. There's opportunities out there, and you just find a way to get through this as a group.
Yeah, so maybe to think a little bit about what's a reasonable span of things to assume we can have control over, and certainly the way we respond to things and the way we treat others, that generally is in our control, regardless of what else is not.
And sometimes, control, sometimes it's a give or take too. You have to be able to share that control, and I think that something that we've had to do, I'm not in control, but just kind of share that control with others and being together is, getting through this as a group, not as just one, it is individual.
Mhm.
Going
It's
through
a
the wilderness alone.
Pandemic survival is a team sport. We win or lose as a people. So another thing that I thought was really interesting that Chris said in terms of discernment, I kind of get the impression Chris takes a longer view of discernment maybe than any of the other people we have talked with in the course of these interviews. But Chris was saying, when I need to think and pray about what God needs me to do next, I ask, what am I confused about? What is it that's making my life so difficult right now? What is complicating things? If we take a moment to think about that, how might we answer that? And let me throw out there, let's assume that in some way COVID is making our life complicated. Let's take that off the table as an answer. But if there is something specific or something not even related to that, that's fine too. But let's assume that answer for most of us. And if that's not the case, then I apologize for that assumption. But what is it that is complicating things for you right now?
Stop looking at me. I know you're waiting for me to be the first one to talk.
I'll look at you up there.
I think part of what's difficult for me right now is I am pretty much over all this already, and I really think that I'm not saying everybody needs to go completely back to normal, but I do think that things are not as bad as they were by any means. I think people have learned to put a little more common sense into things and realize that, you can go out and be safe. You just have to take precautions. And so I think what's, hard for me is that I want things to be more normal right now than they are. And it's frustrating to me. Just something simple, like I want our praise team to be back together, not just two of us. And I think we can safely do that. But I know that that's not what everybody believes. So I have to be understanding of that. And I'm sure I've had different views the whole time than some people, and I think that's okay. Everybody's allowed to be themselves and do what they think they have to do. But it's been really difficult because as much as I want to do certain things, it's not what others want to do necessarily, whether it be work, whether it be here, even at home, whatever. So it's just been difficult to try to be patient and just let things be as they have to be.
I think too, I think a big part's going to be, or a big challenge is going to be coming out of this. Because I guess I'm not fully in agreement with you, Kim, that it's going to be necessarily a piece of cake. I think there's going to be a lot of excess baggage that's going to be hard to get over for a while. That's my feeling. And just as an illustration, just within the past week, I said to Shirley, I said, why don't we go out to eat for a restaurant? She's working tons of hours on the tax business right now. And, we're vaccinated now, we're fully good. Let's go to a restaurant this weekend. And she refused. And I said, well, when are you going to be ready? And I think she was just, perhaps she was pulling my chain, as we've been known to do to each other. One of our secrets to a good marriage over 40 plus years is to pull each other's chains, I guess. And she said,
What
well,
about pushing each other's buttons? Because that's what I'm good at.
oh yeah, that same thing. It's the same, it's different words, for the same thing. So I said, well, when are you going to be ready? She says, maybe never. And I think she was pulling my chain. I can't believe she's never going to go into a restaurant again. But I guess my point is, there's going to be some difficulty, I believe, coming out of this for a lot of people. And everyone's going to have a different comfort level, which can then cause some additional issues. So I don't know.
I totally agree with that, Tom. I do agree. And I think it's not going to be a piece of cake. I didn't mean it to sound like that, but I guess because I've been working in the schools and we've been there since, school went back to, normal a week late, but we've been there since August. And there's been none of these problems that everybody thought there were going to be. We've had very few, there's only been one case that I know of that was kind of drastic, and it was one of our principals, but everybody else has been pretty okay with things. And it's mostly quarantines that have been the problem, not people being sick. So I think everybody was so worried about the schools and all the germs that go around schools, and it's actually not been too bad. So I think a lot of it is just have the precautions in place. And I think that helps, but no, it's not gonna be a piece of cake, and people are gonna be apprehensive. And I am still not gonna go someplace that's super crowded and feel very comfortable for a while, that's for sure. But I do go out.
Where it was interesting because COVID hit just kind of as we were at kind of a crossroads. Jim had retired. I was trying to cut back somewhat at some of my traveling and stuff, but still working quite a bit in clinics, and that knocked out the clinics. So it's like, this retirement thing might not be half bad, but just trying to balance do you retire, not retire, caregiving long distance for elderly parents, and trying to balance that with keeping in connection with younger generations and grandkids, and doing that without COVID, and then throwing COVID on top has been a little bit challenging. Not so sure how we caught the balls in the air.
This is not what you envisioned in terms of retirement. I'm going to retire and then spend a year doing nothing.
Yeah.
Well, retirement for me, I got the true answer that it was a good thing I did retire, because retired like in December, right after Black Friday, and then all of a sudden there's COVID. So it's like, in working retail and being with large numbers of people, both, my fellow employees and guests coming into the store, it's like, 63 or 64, I don't want to risk that chance. It's, I did the right thing. God, said time to retire. Okay. It was a good thing. I saw the reason why. But yeah, I truly believe that patience is just going to be the big thing. When, like I talked a couple meetings ago about, people coming back to church, they're going to have to feel comfortable and, comfortable coming back, and everybody's going to reach that level of comfort at different times, just like people getting shots at different times. And I talked to a guy today and I said, hey, he's a little bit older. I said, have you gotten your shots? He goes, no, I heard they're coming to the Walgreens down the block by the end of the month. So my wife and I are going to get them then. And no real deep concern or no real, you got to get it now, you got to get it now. And very comfortable with his judgment. I think that's how it's got to be for as we go forward.
Yeah.
One thing I found interesting about her comment, the pastor's comment, was when she talked about things being complicated, because I'm viewing her sitting in that nice, cozy living room, retired pastor on a defined benefit plan. I think what's going to be complicated. But the thing about it is, the lesson we know is no matter what stage in life you are in, you're going to have complications. And I think that was not a message that I think she was trying to make, but it certainly was a subtle message that I got from that. I think that was interesting, subtle sideline.
Well, yeah, because she talked about her father, going to the hospital right when she had her hip surgery and then his subsequent passing. So yeah, I mean, even when she thought maybe things are on easy street now, it got complicated.
Chris had also said that she prays sometimes. I feel like I need a change, but I don't know what it is. I'm going to wait for you to tell me. What do all of you do when you are waiting for God?
Well, I did like that she said she doesn't hear voices, because that's what I want to hear. And she doesn't hear him too, but she still feels that she, hears him in other ways. And that's still what's really hard for me. So
I think for me, sometimes when I am waiting for God, I try to actively wait. And by that, I mean, I try to seek out as many places as possible where I feel like there's a good chance God might try to tell me something. I have those people in my life who I call and I say, this is what's going on. This is what's on my heart right now. And I'm just not sure. So I try to do that. I try to learn more about whatever the thing may be. So I like to think that I am not shaking the trees and saying, well, God, you got to tell me now. But I try to be proactive in that here are some places and here are some people through whom I'm pretty sure God has spoken to me before. Let me go and see, maybe God is going to speak through these people again. So as I am waiting for God, I try to seek out places where I feel like God has kind of delivered a message to me before.
I think you'll get more patient as you get older.
I hope so.
that's true.
I'm gonna say, I think God's gonna find you no matter who you're talking to.
That's right. God can find me no matter
Yeah,
what.
I don't think you have to be in a certain.
And sometimes we just, like we were talking about earlier, sometimes we just need to be quiet. Sometimes we just need that lateral movement before we could take that next step forward. And I think when you're in a period where you're moving laterally, you are more open to listen. You have that peripheral vision. You see what's going on all around you, and you're not just concentrating on one thing. And it's, and I think, and you're right, George, as you get older, like I tell people, what are you up to? I said, I'm just trying to keep things simple. That's it, and not let, there are going to be complications that you're going to have to deal with them, but if you have a time where things aren't complicated, enjoy them, just keep them simple.
Mhm.
I was also very intrigued about what Chris said about feeling like she's at a stopping place. She said, I don't need to be pushing ahead somewhere. I'm waiting for what around me changes so I can adapt. Where have the stopping places been for people? Where have those places been where you say, you know what, I don't need to move forward or back or side to side. I can be here, and I can be okay with seeing where God is going to bring me next.
I don't know, when I heard that, I didn't know what to think about that, to be honest with you. And in a way, I'm not sure that I agreed that that's really a good mindset or mind place to be. I mean, in a way, it kind of reminded me a little bit of, the whole concept of retirement, where, you just put your feet up, and then that reminds me of the one proverb where the farmer had a great bumper crop, and he put away, builds, I don't know how many barns to
Let's
load
build
up
more
all-
barns to keep it all in.
Right, and now I can put my feet up and relax, and didn't quite work out that way for him. So I don't know. I'm not sure that's and I struggle with that as I at least am retired from my corporate job. I'm still working some this time of the year, quite a bit, but I call myself partially retired. But wanting to get rid of the partial at some point. But even there, you just ask yourself, or you go back to that parable. And I remember one time I even was, it's a very rare time. Every once in a while, I'll if I'm driving, I'll turn on Moody radio, and I just happen to hear because they normally have things that are come at you from a different way from what I'm used to. So sometimes it's good just to hear what they have to say. And again, it's not maybe not quite once in a blue moon, but pretty much that infrequent. But the one time I remember, not all that long ago, and it happened to catch a guy talking about retirement and saying, there is nothing in the Bible about retirement. Absolutely nothing. It's not supposed to exist. You're supposed to be ministering basically till the day you die. And I thought about that and said, I really couldn't argue with them. So I don't know, just a few thoughts on that topic.
That's an interesting thought about Scripture's understanding of retirement. We have to keep the much lower average life expectancy in mind too. But I think Scripture does, Tom, to what you said, it does tell us about we need to be prepared to change and adapt our ministry as we get older. And it's understood. It's in the commandments. Honor your father and your mother, so that your days may be long in the land I am giving you. And I think part of the subtext of that commandment is for the fathers and mothers, for the elders, there is a responsibility to, if people honor you, there is a responsibility to pass along what you know. So I think that, I don't think we ever stop ministering. Look at Luke's gospel. What does Jesus do on the cross? Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. You will be with me in paradise. So Jesus exemplifies that. He is doing ministry right up till he draws his last breath. Hopefully it will not be quite that kind of situation for any of us, but that notion of whatever that ministry is, it's going to grow and evolve with us. So I think maybe that's a good sound way to think about it. But I don't put a lot of time into thinking about retirement because
You got a while.
When I heard her say
Those
that,
years go by fast.
when I heard Pastor say that, I thought maybe I took it the wrong way or a little differently. I thought more of she was trying to say just kind of living in the moment.
Yeah, that's how I took
And
What
you
comes
don't
next.
really have to do anything, but you can do things, it's kind of like the thing from the play Rent, No Day But Today. So you have opportunity to do things, maybe like for Nancy and I, it's like, okay, this is a good day. Let's go to Hearts in Motion and let's go put a couple hours in the warehouse, or let's, we have a time, it's gonna be nice. Let's go. Betsy and Andrew need help in Guatemala. Let's go, or in Guatemala, geez, in Atlanta. They're moving. So we could go down there and we can help them because we have that flexibility. We have this time, and it's not so much picking our feet up, but it's making use and doing different things that, say, if we were working, we wouldn't be able to do.
That's true.
Yeah, we're kind of at a stopping place if you look at it from that way. That's okay. You got a call. Okay, wait, can you be out in New York in 2 weeks, and then drive us down to Texas from there?
You're
Yeah.
you're at a stopping place in the sense that you can kind of stop
Mhm.
when you feel called to.
But we can also be open then to what is going on around us and
Yeah.
not so much, well, and adapt to those changes. I don't know if I'd say adapted would have been the word I would have used.
Okay.
Maybe say, take advantage of those changes that this ministry has now come in my path.
Mhm.
It's not, it's making good use of the time we have, but we don't have to put it into a schedule.
Right.
Mary was trying to say.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Mary.
Jim, I agree with you about living in the moment. There are a group of teachers retiring next year, and then after they leave, I'm the old one. And ironically, I had a retirement conversation with a coworker my age today, and we are planning to go in 6 years. And we actually talked about this today, and we talked about how living in this moment of hybrid teaching and technology is not something I'm comfortable with, but how much I've learned. This is not the time of dittos and chalkboards. Now it's Google Classroom and I don't even know, touch TV or whatever, Zoom, all this stuff. And we're getting there and we're living in this moment and we're getting better and we're allowing the young teachers to help us, but the young teachers are allowing us to remind them of the way it used to be. And it's really been an interesting year of teaching at my school, how we're, the young and old, are working together. And I don't think that would have happened last year with this new young crew of teachers. It's been crazy, but we're, as you said, we're living in the moment. As Chris said too, of new way of being as coworkers And that wasn't happening. We went through a really bad time of the young and the old versus the old. And this year it wasn't like that. So I don't know if I'm explaining myself well, but I agree, Jim,
Yeah.
and what Chris was saying in a positive sense, living in this weird moment and making it good.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
I think there's going to be some good that's come out of it.
Oh, lots of positives have come out of it, I think.
Maybe we should say we're living in our moment,
Yes.
because everybody's is different, but yet, it is like you said, it's all work, everybody together, we're all in this together, but this is our moment in that, in this COVID story.
I became very good friends with this year with a young gym teacher. I knew her. I mean, she's been with us for about 4 years, but we never talked. She's like 28, I'm close to retirement. We never talked. And we have become really good friends because we had this 2-hour break together and we walk together every day. And that would not have happened. That had not happened until this year. So just, there's been some cool things.
So we have just a couple of minutes left. I wanted to jump down to the bottom of our study guide there. And Chris was talking about her sense that there will be a renewal in the church. But I want to ask, our series has been tested, renewed, and led forward. What is your greatest hope for renewal in your life? And while you're thinking about that, I'll go ahead and I'll jump in and I'll share to get the ball rolling. If we could hear from everyone on this would be fantastic. But we do not. I don't want anyone to feel obligated. But I think for me, the place where I really hope for a sense of renewal is a clearer, more focused sense of call. I think I am looking to be renewed in being able to put time and energy into kind of building up and actually kind of bringing people together. I feel like over the last year, my energy has been just drained by 100 little things that all need to be dealt with in rapid succession, and you deal with it. And then the circumstances change, and then it's okay, well, now we got to figure out how to work around this. And I understand that's life. Change is the only constant, as they say. But I feel like the pace and the number of things that need that process has been a lot more lately. So I look forward to a more focused sense of call. I look forward to finding some simplicity that will help us do more. That is my hope for renewal in my life.
I just hope we don't forget the lessons that we've learned in this past year and how we don't have the control, and when we do think we do and it's taken away, how much it's just stymies us and cripples us. And so that hopefully by knowing that losing that control that we think we have and still making it through it and finding ways to make it through it in other ways, that we don't forget that lesson and that we don't take anything for granted. And so I have hope in that.
I guess I'm looking at it in a more tangible way, perhaps. But if there's truly going to be a renewal, like she says, and I think our community, our country, our world needs it desperately. Awakening, if you will. There have been other times in the past where there has been a spiritual awakening, throughout the world. So, if that were to actually take place, I mean, I hope that tangibly happens by that meaning that we have more people here. We have more people in our services, whether it be 10%, 20%, 30%, I don't know, but there would actually be a bit of a surge, an uptick in our attendance at our services and our membership and that sort of thing. And if there's anything that I could do to help that happen, that would be something that, I would have to keep my eyes and ears open for, if there is such a thing.
I think kind of building off what Tom said, and what you said, not just seeing the growth of the congregation coming back within, but with the outreach of the congregation. Being able to go back to night ministry and some of our other mission projects that we kind of kept going kind of by a long thin string, but not the growth that the path that we had been on, the way we were kind of going on a really nice path.
Agreed.
I think for me, it's okay. I found out that this pandemic, it's okay not to be in control. And but it's just for everybody to feel comfortable who they are. And we all get back together, just say, let's roll up our sleeves and say, where do you need us? And just like what I was saying, like just like a part of the team, a part of what makes the wheels go round. Because we have so many.
I don't have that song in my head. Well, yes, it's been doing it.
But yeah, because we have a lot of people with a lot of wonderful gifts, and it's just let's just see who if we could all just get together and make it happen.
Does anyone else feel the spirit moving them to share?
I guess for
I'm
me,
comfortable, we'll do just fine.
I guess for me, ultimately, in all this, there was no playbook for anybody. They had a lot of decisions made by whether it be churches, schools, organizations, businesses. Everyone did the best they could, and everyone were making decisions they thought were right that would help everybody and keep people healthy and safe. And now going forward, I'm hoping that everyone could remember that there was no harm meant by any of these decisions made, that it was all for the betterment of everybody. And let's just move forward and take it step by step, and let's all learn from it.
Grace and patience and understanding and support.
You two summed it up perfectly. Perfectly.
So we have come to the end of our time together tonight. We've come to the end of our Lent series. Lent is over, I guess, technically tomorrow. So So there, if anybody is feeling called to be a worship leader this weekend, I would love to hear from you. I'll just throw that out there. And like I said before, we will not be meeting next week. We will be back on the 14th to study, and I am going to be sending out a brief feedback form that I'm hoping everybody can take a moment to fill out so we can see kind of if this format we've used over Lent is something we may want to consider doing again. But I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank everybody for their willingness to hop in and hop on board with our experiment for Lent this year. And let's close our time together tonight by praying the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever.
Now and forever.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everyone. Blessings on your evening, and we will see everybody soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Pastor. Hey, Pastor, real quick, if you volunteer to be the lecturer, do you get the scripture ahead of time?
You can.
Okay,
I can-
because in
yeah.
the past they used to mail it, but
Mhm.
that's not gonna happen anymore. But how do they get the material to you ahead of time?
Email.
Oh.
Email.
Okay. All right. And we just sign up online on that address or whatever?
Yes, it went down in the midweek email today. Yes.
Okay. All right, and then they'll email the, okay, all right, perfect.
Yep.
All right,
Very good.
thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.